What if the most dangerous mistake you've ever made was giving the right parts of you to the wrong people? Not because you were naive, but because you believed too soon. You trusted too quickly. You let someone hold a piece of your inner world before they proved they had the hands to carry it. And maybe now there's a quiet part of you that feels scattered, like something sacred was handled carelessly, and you can't quite gather it back. There are certain things in life that were never meant to be shared with everyone, not because you're selfish, but because some truths are too deep, too precious, too fragile to be handed to someone who hasn't earned their place beside them. The Stoics taught that peace, clarity, and strength come not from being open to all things, but from learning to guard what is essential and to walk through life with quiet discernment. This isn't about hiding, it's about honoring, about recognizing that your inner life isn't public property. There are parts of you that are sacred, not to be protected out of fear, but out of wisdom. And so, if you've ever felt the ache of being too open in a world too careless, stay with me. There are 5 things you must learn to protect, not with walls, but with wisdom. 1. Guard your inner stillness. Have you ever walked into a room and felt your calm begin to fray, not because of what was said, but because of the energy, the tension, the unspoken weight others carry and expect you to hold? That invisible pull, that silent chaos, enters you before you even realize it. And suddenly, the quiet you worked so hard to protect is gone. You've been disrupted, not by force, but by proximity. Peace, in its truest sense, is not something loud or impressive. It's not something you post or announce. It is the stillness beneath your thoughts, the quiet ground you stand on while the world trembles. It is the soul's breath, a sanctuary not built by walls, but by boundaries. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself, "Nowhere can a man find a more peaceful retreat than in his own soul." And that is where it begins. Not in silence itself, but in the discipline of not letting others disturb the silence within you. Imagine a man who lives on the edge of a bustling city. Outside, the noise is relentless, horns, arguments, movement. But inside his home, he has carved a space of quiet. No distractions, no demands, just a small room with a single candle and his journal. That space is not just physical, it's a reflection of the state he'd chosen to guard. But one day, visitors arrive. One by one, they bring their complaints, their noise, their restlessness. They demand his attention, seek his approval, offload their chaos into his presence. And because he's kind, because he thinks strength means being open, he lets them in. One by one they fill his quiet room until it resembles the very world he sought refuge from. And then he wonders, why do I feel so scattered, so unanchored, so tired? This is what happens when you give away your peace to people who haven't earned the right to be near it. When you allow the world's storms to invade your inner weather, you lose the stillness that steadies you. Not all storms come with thunder. Some arrive dressed as conversation. Some hide inside the small favors people ask of you. Others wear the mask of obligation, guilt, or even love. But the result is the same. Your inner waters are stirred, and what was once clear becomes cloudy. Peace is not just a break from noise. It is strength trained in stillness. It is knowing when to say no, when to walk away, and when to hold your center, even when the world tugs at you with its drama. To the Stoics, protecting one's peace was not selfish, it was survival. Seneca wrote, "The mind must be given relaxation. It will rise improved and sharper after a good break." But this break doesn't always mean rest. Sometimes it means removing yourself from the pull of people who mistake your calm for weakness and your presence for permission. I remember a young man who always wanted to help others. He was the quiet one in every group, the one people came to with their problems. He gave his time, his listening ear, his emotional energy to anyone who needed it. At first, he felt noble, then exhausted. Slowly, he began to feel resentful, but not toward others. He blamed himself for not being stronger, more patient. But what he didn't realize was that his peace was never meant to be public property. He was trained to serve, but he never learned to guard. It wasn't until he stepped away from everyone, from the noise, the expectations, the constant giving, that he heard something he hadn't heard in years, his own voice. You must understand this. Your peace is not a luxury. It is not a nice to have. It is the ground from which all right action flows. Without it, you react instead of respond. You speak from irritation instead of intention. You move in defense instead of direction. The Stoics didn't teach us to avoid the world, but to master our place within it. And you cannot master anything if you're constantly letting people rearrange the furniture inside your mind. There will always be those who try to pull you into their storm, their crisis, their urgency. They will call your stillness indifference. They will say you've changed, grown cold, become distant. Let them. What they call distance, the Stoic calls clarity. What they label coldness, the philosopher calls detachment from disturbance. What they resent in you is not a flaw, it's your refusal to be shaken. Let this be your measure. If a conversation leaves you feeling hollow, if a presence drains you more than it renews you, if an environment disturbs your ability to hear your own thoughts, it is not worth your peace. You do not owe anyone access to your calm. You do not owe anyone the privilege of proximity to your inner sanctuary. As Epictetus taught, it is not things that disturb us, but our judgments about them. And one of the greatest judgments you'll ever make is choosing who and what you allow near your mind. Your peace is not something you prove, it is something you protect. Protect it like you would a fragile flame in the wind, shielded by discipline, by boundaries, by the knowledge that not everyone deserves your softness. Guard it not by hiding away, but by standing firm in the face of noise. Let your composure be your defense. Let your quiet be your rebellion. And remember, peace is not passive. It is active resistance to everything that tries to scatter you. It is a practiced stillness, a trained clarity, a chosen silence. When you hold your peace, not out of fear, but from reverence, you become immovable. You become the calm in the room, the one who doesn't need to raise their voice, because their presence is the voice. So don't be afraid to step back. Don't be afraid to leave the table where your presence is only valued for how much of yourself you give away. Don't be afraid to be alone if that's where your clarity lives, for only in solitude can you reclaim what noise tried to steal, your sense of direction, your connection to what truly matters, your understanding of who you are without the world pulling at your sleeves. And when you find that peace again, you'll see the world differently. You'll listen without absorbing. You'll care without carrying. You'll love without losing yourself. And you'll give, not from emptiness, but from overflow, because peace, once protected, becomes power. Now let's move to the second thing you must never share, not because it's too fragile, but because it's still growing, and exposing it too early can destroy it before it blooms. 2. Protect dreams while they're becoming. Have you ever spoken a dream aloud, something fragile, something not yet formed, and watched the light dim in someone's eyes as they responded with silence, doubt, or a forced smile? It's a strange pain, that quiet withering of hope. Not because your dream was wrong, but because it was exposed too soon to a world that didn't recognize its worth. There is a kind of ache that doesn't come from failure, but from sharing what was sacred before it was strong. A dream, in its early form, is like a fire built in the dark. It offers warmth and light, but only if you shield it from the wind. Stoicism teaches us that the things most precious to us must first be cultivated within, not scattered before others in search of approval. Epictetus said, "Never depend on the admiration of others. There is no strength in it. Personal merit cannot be derived from an external source. Your dream, then, is not meant to be validated by applause. It is meant to be strengthened by silence." I once heard the story of a man who dreamed of planting an orchard on a hill. The soil was dry, the winds were harsh, the villagers laughed. They said the land was cursed, too rocky, too barren to ever grow fruit. But the man said nothing. He did not argue, he simply worked. Season after season he carried water up the hill. He studied the earth, adjusted his methods, watched the sky. Years passed. The hill remained quiet, but then one spring the buds appeared. By the time the villagers noticed, the trees were already heavy with fruit. What they thought was impossible had become undeniable. And yet, if he had spent those early days explaining his dream to them, seeking their permission, defending his hope, he would have lost it. That's the danger of speaking too soon. When you share a dream in its seed form, you open it to contamination, to comparison, to those who have abandoned their own dreams and will not understand why yours still burns. They will question its logic, its practicality, its worth. But the Stoic asks not whether something is popular, but whether it is true to your nature. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself often, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." The inverse is also worth remembering. If it is right for you and true to who you are, you do not need to explain it. Dreams are not meant to be debated. They are meant to be built, quietly, steadily, without permission. Your dream is the blueprint of your inner calling. Not the external kind shaped by ambition or vanity, but the deeper one, aligned with your reason, your nature, your virtues. And in the beginning, that alignment is easily broken. Just a few careless words from the wrong mouth, and suddenly you're second-guessing what once felt like purpose. I've seen many abandon their path not because they lacked strength, but because they spoke before they were ready. They handed their map to someone who had never seen the destination, and that person, blinded by their own limits, told them to turn back. And so they did. But you must not. Guard your dreams as you would guard your peace, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Because while the world may not understand what you're building, it does know how to destroy what it envies. Some will try to reshape your dream in their image. Others will try to tame it, shrink it, box it into what feels realistic. But you were not made for smallness. The Stoics never taught restraint in vision, they taught restraint in reaction. Let them doubt, let them mock, let them walk away, but never let them rewrite what was entrusted to you in silence. Picture a sculptor working alone in a quiet room. The statue is not yet visible, just marble, untouched. Outside, voices call out. Some demand to see the finished form. Others say it will never amount to anything. The sculptor hears them, but does not stop. He knows what the form will be, and he also knows this: it would be foolish to show them a half-formed work and ask for their trust. He must wait until the form itself is undeniable. Then, and only then, will the silence break, and so must you. Until your dream has taken root in your actions, in your discipline, in your daily labor, it is not ready to be seen. That doesn't mean it's unworthy. It means it's still becoming, still forming under the weight of your intention. When you speak of it too early, you drain its power. When you defend it, you scatter its focus. When you seek validation, you weaken the only voice that matters, your own. Let your work be the evidence. Let your results speak where your words are not needed. And until then, let your dream live in the quiet. that is where it will grow strongest. That is where it cannot be corrupted. I invite you to comment, guard the seed, if this has spoken to you. And if you want to walk deeper into this philosophy with me, consider subscribing. Quiet strength, after all, is not something you chase. It is something you build. And now, let's continue, because even the most beautiful dream will wither if given to the wrong heart. So the next thing we must learn to guard is the heart itself. 3. Give the heart only to the worthy. Have you ever watched someone pour all of themselves into another, like sunlight through an open window, warm, generous, unguarded, only to watch that same light be shut out, dismissed, or worse, misunderstood? And afterward, they're left dimmer, not bitter, just less willing to shine. If you've ever given your heart to someone who held it carelessly, you know what I mean. You know the silence that follows, the one that lingers long after words are gone. The Stoics never taught us to close ourselves off from love, but they did teach us to understand its weight. Seneca once wrote, "The wise man is self-sufficient, yet he still desires friends." The point is not to abandon connection, but to love wisely, to give what is sacred only to those who can hold it without harm. Your heart is not a transaction. It is not a favor to be granted or a tool to earn approval. Your heart is the hidden temple where your deepest convictions dwell, where your hopes breathe, where your quiet strength begins. To give it to someone is to entrust them with your most essential self. And yet too often we toss it out with a hope and a smile, assuming everyone we care for is capable of carrying what is delicate. But not all hands are steady, not all minds are ready, and not every soul is able to see what they've been given. I knew a woman once who gave everything she had, attention, loyalty, love, to someone who seemed to admire her fire. But when the winds shifted and the admiration faded, she found herself in ashes, not because she loved wrongly, but because she loved without discernment. And when I asked her what she learned, she said, "Not to harden, but to hold back. Not in fear, in wisdom." There is a quiet power in that wisdom, a power that knows not every connection requires complete surrender. A power that listens not just to what others say, but to how they hold space for you. A power that understands, as Epictetus said, it is not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them. And sometimes our opinion that we must give everything to be loved is what undoes us. Your heart is not a proving ground. You do not owe anyone full access simply because they ask. You do not have to share your inner garden before they've shown they can tend to their own. In fact, your heart grows best when it is not constantly pried open, but gently unfolded by trust, by shared virtue, by time. So many people confuse openness with goodness. They believe that to be kind is to be exposed, that to love is to abandon discretion. But that's not Stoicism, that's surrender. And the Stoics were not weak in love, they were strong in choice. They chose who to honor, who to walk beside, who to let near the fire. Imagine your heart as a flame in a cold world. It gives warmth. It gives light, but if you expose it to every wind, it flickers and fades. If you offer it to those who simply want to watch it burn for entertainment, you'll be left in the dark. But if you shield it, not hide it, you'll find that the right ones will gather near it, not to consume, but to share in its glow. I've seen people give their hearts like coins, tossed into fountains, wishing for something in return. And when nothing comes back, they blame the world. But a coin tossed is a coin lost. And your heart was never meant to be thrown. It was meant to be placed, intentionally, wisely, in hands that have proven they can carry it with reverence. This is not a call to isolation. This is not about fearing love. It's about rising above the idea that to love is to lose yourself, that to be connected is to be consumed. It is possible to love deeply and remain rooted, to care fully and stay grounded. The Stoic path is not cold. It is clear. It does not shun emotion, it disciplines it. It does not reject connection, it refines it. And sometimes the best expression of love is restraint. To watch someone with care, to hold space for them, yet still preserve the deepest part of you until they've earned the right to enter. There is something powerful about being selective, not out of arrogance, but out of respect for your own inner sanctum. There's a quiet beauty in learning to wait, to hold your heart gently until someone arrives who doesn't ask for it, but earns it. Someone who doesn't need you to break open, but simply sits with you, steady and present, and proves over time that their hands can be trusted. Until then, you are not cold for being guarded. You are not unkind for being discerning. You are not broken for loving carefully. You are wise, you are strong, you are sovereign. And that sovereignty, rooted in reason and self-respect, is the very foundation of real love. So protect your heart, not with walls, but with awareness. Not with fear, but with depth. And when the right one comes, the one who sees the sacred, who walks with quiet honor, who meets your silence with stillness, then, and only then, give it. Not because you need to, but because you choose to. And when you choose, let it be a full offering, a free offering, because then it will no longer be about being seen. It will be about being safe. It will no longer be about filling a void, but sharing a fire. That is the Stoic way, and that is how we honor the heart, not by silencing it, but by learning who is truly worthy of hearing its song. Now, let us turn to the fourth and often misunderstood form of silence, the kind that surrounds our failures. 4. Keep failures sacred until refined. Have you ever shared a failure, something that hurt, something you were still healing from, and watched the expression change on someone's face? Not with compassion, but with quiet judgment, as if that one chapter defined your entire book. It's a sharp kind of silence, one that doesn't say much aloud, but lingers in the room like a shadow. And in that moment, something inside you withdraws. Not because you regret the mistake, but because you offered it to someone who saw weakness instead of growth. Failure, in its truest form, is not disgraceful. It is formative. It is the turning of the soil before the seed takes root. In the Stoic view, failure is not something to be feared or paraded. It is to be accepted, reflected upon, and turned inward for transformation. Epictetus said, "Difficulties show men what they are." Therefore, when a difficulty falls upon you, remember that God, like a trainer of wrestlers, has matched you with a rough young man. That's what failure does. It introduces you to your own roughness so you can refine it. But there is danger in sharing your failures too freely. When you reveal the cracks in your armor to those who do not understand your path, they may mistake those cracks for signs of collapse rather than signs of rebuilding. And the truth is, most people do not see failure as a forge for strength. They see it as a verdict. They won't say it, but in their eyes, you'll feel it, that quiet assumption that you've fallen because you are flawed. I remember hearing the story of a man who started a business in a small town. It failed within 2 years. People mocked him, whispered in markets, chuckled when he walked by. They never asked about the lessons. They never saw the grit. Years later, he started again, quietly, privately, learning from every misstep. This time, he succeeded. When asked why he kept his second venture secret, he said, "Because when I failed the first time, they called it proof. I wanted to make sure this time they had nothing to say until the fruit had grown. This is the heart of the Stoic teaching. You do not owe your struggle to those who will turn it into spectacle. You do not have to hand over your hardships to those who haven't earned the right to witness your climb. Seneca said, "No man was ever wise by chance. Wisdom comes from falling, yes, but also from choosing wisely who you rise around." We live in a world quick to collect stories, quick to dissect, quick to label. And when you speak of your failures, if you are not careful, you hand your narrative to others who might not hold it with care. They will define you by your worst moment, not by your recovery. They will forget the lesson and focus only on the bruise. But failure is sacred. Not because it makes you special, but because it makes you honest. It strips away pride. It teaches humility. It introduces you to what you're truly made of, not in theory, but in the furnace. It is not something to hide from, but neither is it something to display for the world to handle like gossip. When you fail, and you will, you must first carry it alone. Not because you're meant to suffer in silence, but because the earliest stage of learning requires solitude. You must observe without noise, reflect without interruption, and most importantly, rewrite your own understanding before you let anyone else speak over it. There's a kind of resilience that comes only when no one claps for your comeback, when no one is watching. That is when it becomes yours, not performative, not reactive, but foundational. The Stoics would have you meet every fall with composure, not with confession. You rise not to prove anything to others, but to align again with your principles. Picture a tree, its bark scarred, one limb torn, the base hollowed by wind. Still it stands, still it reaches for the sky. No one calls that tree broken, they call it strong. Not despite the damage, but because of it. And so are you. The dents in your armor, the cracks in your foundation, they are not signs of failure. They are evidence of endurance. You must hold your failures like a sculptor holds clay, carefully, quietly, shaping them into something that reflects purpose. And when they've hardened into wisdom, when the sculpture is ready, then and only then do you show the world. Not to seek praise, but to stand as proof that no storm is final. And be warned, there will be those who want to use your past to tether you, who will say, "Remember when you tried and failed." Say nothing. Let your presence answer. Let your steadiness be the proof. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. And the best response to those who judge your failures is to keep building, keep refining, keep walking forward, not to erase the past, but to rise above it. Because failure is not a destination, it is a tool. And, like any tool, it must be handled with care, used with intention, and never handed to someone who will misuse it. So keep your failures close. Let them whisper to you when pride threatens to blind you. Let them anchor you when success feels too light. Let them shape your spine, not your identity. For no stumble defines a soul, but every rise after it refines one. Now we turn to the final lesson, because after peace, after dreams, after heart, and even after failure, there remains one last thing too sacred to share without discernment: your secrets. 5. Defend the silence that grounds you. Have you ever sat in silence just for a moment and felt something so still, so steady inside you that you almost didn't recognize it? Not joy, not excitement, but something deeper, a soft quiet that wrapped around your bones like warmth. And maybe, just as you noticed it, the world barged in. A message, a demand, someone else's urgency. And suddenly, that silence vanished like smoke. You were no longer present. You were pulled outward again, before you had a chance to understand what you'd just touched. That, my friend, was your peace. And once disturbed, it doesn't return easily. Peace is not the absence of noise. It's not about retreating from the world or pretending storms don't exist. Peace, as the Stoics understood it, is an internal condition, a fortress of the soul. It is the clarity that remains when confusion circles you, the stillness that stands when everything else shakes. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul. But this retreat is not given, it is built, it is cultivated, and above all, it must be protected." The tragedy of modern life is not just that we've lost our peace, it's that we give it away without a second thought. We let people's emotions dictate our inner climate. We let passing noise disturb our still waters. We allow chaos to enter through the smallest cracks. An argument, an insult, an expectation that was never ours to carry. And little by little, we no longer live from the inside out, but from the outside in. I once met a man who had lived in a monastery for many years before returning to the city. I asked him how he maintained his stillness in the noise of daily life. He smiled and said, "Out there, I built silence around me. In here," he pointed to his chest, "I built silence within me. Now the noise can only reach the walls, not the center." That is the kind of peace the Stoics trained for, not circumstantial, but sovereign. But the moment you speak of it too often, the moment you seek validation for it, or try to explain it to someone who cannot comprehend it, you begin to lose it. Not because they took it, but because you handed it to someone who doesn't understand the cost of calm. Your peace is not entertainment. It is not currency. It is not a signal to prove that you're above the fray. It is a discipline. It is the practice of restraint when provoked, the clarity to walk away when baited, and the wisdom to know that not every wave deserves your awe. Seneca warned, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." But when we forfeit our peace to every voice, every opinion, every pull of emotion, we suffer in reality too, because we've lost the boundary that keeps the world from invading our minds. The world will try to engage you constantly. People will invite you into conflict, not always with bad intent, but with unresolved chaos of their own. They'll want your reaction, your validation, your fire. They'll present their storms as yours to calm. But listen carefully. Not every storm was sent for you to sail into. I once watched a woman sit at a crowded dinner table while everyone around her argued. She didn't flinch, didn't raise her voice, didn't offer solutions. Someone turned to her and asked why she was so quiet. She replied, "I have nothing to prove, and I have nothing to fix that does not belong to me." That's peace, not passivity, but power under control. There will be times when people mistake your silence for weakness. Let them. There will be times when they call your stillness avoidance. Let them. Your task is not to perform your peace, it is to live it, and to protect it as fiercely as you would your own breath. Because once disturbed, it takes far longer to return. Protecting your peace is not selfish, it is essential. If you do not have peace, you cannot lead, you cannot serve, you cannot love well. A fractured soul cannot offer wholeness. And when you give that peace away, you begin to chase your own center in the opinions of others. But, as Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself," and peace is the evidence of mastery. This doesn't mean you avoid people, it means you become selective with your energy. It means you ask, not who wants your time, but who has earned access to your calm. It means you build your life in such a way that your stillness is not a secret, but a statement. Imagine your peace like a lamp lit in the middle of a vast, dark field. People will come to it. Some will sit quietly. Others will want to shake it, test it, question its glow. Some will even try to smother it, not because they hate the light, but because they've forgotten how to sit in the dark. Your job is not to argue with them. Your job is to guard the flame, and sometimes that means walking away, not out of pride, but out of preservation. Sometimes it means not responding to the provocation, not correcting every false word spoken about you, not defending your silence. There is power in choosing not to engage. There is freedom in realizing you owe no one your reaction. Your peace is the root of your dignity. It's what allows you to move with intention instead of impulse, to act with honor rather than defense. And when you protect it, you do not become distant, you become clear. The world may not understand it, but it will feel it. And that presence, calm, grounded, undisturbed, is what turns quiet people into mountains. So do not share your peace too easily. Do not offer it in exchange for belonging, approval, or comfort. Do not let it be shaped by the voices that haven't earned the right to speak into your soul. Build it, guard it, and let it become the ground you walk on when everything else falls away, because in the end, the storms will come, the noise will rise, but the one who remains anchored in peace remains. That is the strength the world cannot shake. And that is where we end this journey, not in volume, not in reaction, but in the quiet clarity of one truth. What you guard grows. And so I'll leave you with this quiet truth. What you carry within you is not for everyone to hold. Your peace, your dreams, your heart, your failures, these are not trinkets to display for the world's opinions. They are roots, they are fire. They are the parts of you that still whisper in the dark when no one else is listening. And they deserve your protection, not your exposure. You don't owe anyone your story before you've lived it. You don't have to explain your pain while it's still healing, and you don't have to share your light with those who only show up to dim it. That is not coldness. That is discernment. That is wisdom practiced in silence. Seneca wrote, "Nothing to my way of thinking is a better proof of a well-ordered mind than a man's ability to stop where he is and pass some time in his own company." So learn to sit with yourself, to keep your inner treasures close until the time is right, until the person is right, until the ground is steady. Because the more you protect what's sacred, the more powerful it becomes. The more you choose silence over spectacle, depth over noise, stillness over reaction, the stronger your soul will grow. You are not here to prove anything. You are here to live clearly, to walk lightly, and to love without losing yourself. If any part of this resonated with you, take a moment to let it settle. And when you're ready, share your presence in the comments below with just 3 words: protect the sacred. If you found stillness here, you're welcome to stay. There are more lessons ahead on strength, on detachment, on living a life rooted in self-mastery. Quiet truths that aren't shouted, but carried. You can return any time. Until then, walk forward with dignity. Let your silence be a statement. Let your peace be your compass. And let your boundaries remind the world that not everything beautiful was made to be touched. Because when you guard what is sacred, you grow what is eternal. And that is where your strength begins, not in what you give away, but in what you choose to keep.